I love books. Old books, older books, books that are better than the movie, psychological sci-fi, philosophy books that are so thick they could double as workout equipment. Basically, I love reading, but books are often difficult to understand. They can be confusing. They make references that you don't get, or they make you curious about things that they don't cover. They pose questions that they don't answer. Books are amazing, but there's actually a lot that they don't do. Recently, I got access to ChatGPT's new advanced voice mode, and I've been using it to read books. And I really think it's going to change a lot about how we learn and how we read. Here's how I use it. So what I do is I sit on the couch like this and I grab a book, good book, and I'll just open up ChatGPT and I'll hit the advanced voice mode button. So then what I do is I just rest it on the couch right behind me like this and I start reading. I'm reading The Birth of Tragedy, and he says, man is no longer an artist. He has become a work of art. The artistic power of the whole of nature reveals itself to the supreme gratification of the primal oneness amidst the paroxysms of intoxication. What does that mean?
Nietzsche is diving into some deep philosophical waters here. In The Birth of Tragedy, when he says man has become a work of art, he's talking about how in moments of ecstasy or deep connection with nature, people lose their individual selves and become part of something greater.
One of the things it's so good for is getting context on historical figures or terms you don't know while you're reading. So for example, I'm currently reading Plato's Protagoras and Meno, good book. And as I'm reading, if I come across something I don't know, I can just ask. I'm reading Protagoras by Plato. Who's Critias?
Critias is a character in several of Plato's dialogues, including Protagoras. He was an Athenian political figure, a philosopher, and a relative of Plato. Known for his role in the oligarchic government of the 30 tyrants, his reputation is quite controversial.
The same thing goes for science books. For example, I'm also reading The Weirdest People in the World by Joseph Henrich. And often with a book like this, it makes claims that you just want to understand more about. You want to know, does it still represent current science? What might we have discovered since it was written? And ChatGPT is actually great for giving context. I'm reading The Weirdest People in the World, and he says that reading changes your brain, specifically that it changes your left ventral occipital temporal region. Is that actually true?
Yes, it's true. Learning to read does change your brain, specifically the left ventral occipital temporal region, which is involved in visual processing. This area becomes specialized for recognizing words and letters, reflecting how our brains adapt to new skills and experiences.
But it's not only good for terms or historical context or scientific facts. It's also good to help prepare the way for what you're about to read. For example, I'm reading Martha Nussbaum's The Fragility of Goodness, good book. And it's actually a really complex philosophical argument. And sometimes when I'm starting a book or starting a chapter, it can be really helpful to have ChatGPT explain to me what I'm about to read, so I can process it better. I'm about to start Martha Nussbaum's Fragility of Goodness. I'm on chapter 1, Luck and Ethics. Can you help me prepare for what I'm about to read? Summarize the argument she's going to make.
Certainly. In chapter 1, Nussbaum discusses the role of luck in human life, drawing from ancient Greek literature and philosophy. She explores how external factors beyond our control can significantly impact our ethical lives and our pursuit of the good. Nussbaum examines how Greek tragedies and philosophers, particularly Sophocles and Plato, grapple with this tension between human vulnerability and the pursuit of ethical understanding.
I also think it's great not just for summarizing what you're about to read, but also for presenting opposing viewpoints. I'm currently reading The Trial of Socrates by I.F. Stone, good book, where Stone argues that the Athenians were sort of right to put Socrates to death. And it's one of those books where you find yourself nodding along, but then you're like, wait, is this really right? I'm reading The Trial of Socrates by I.F. Stone. Can you lay out his argument concisely and then tell me some actual things he missed?
In The Trial of Socrates, I.F. Stone argues that Socrates was not just a noble martyr for free speech, but also a subversive figure whose actions and teachings threatened Athenian democracy. Stone suggests that Socrates' trial was not merely about his philosophical views, but also about his perceived antagonism toward the democratic values and institutions of Athens. Stone portrays Socrates as a complex figure who, despite his contributions, was viewed as a political threat. Critics argue that Stone downplays the philosophical dimensions of Socrates' trial and the broader historical context of Athenian politics. Some suggest that Stone's interpretation may overemphasize Socrates' anti democratic stance, potentially neglecting the philosophical nuances of his defense and the complexity of his relationship with Athenian society.
In using ChatGPT like this, I started to realize how many things I wonder about or how many questions I have as I read that I don't follow up on because it's like too taxing. It just takes too much time. And using ChatGPT like this in voice mode, you have this like 24/7 companion with you that lowers the bar for asking questions because it's always there to answer. I ask so many questions that I feel a little bit like a kid. And I feel like I get way more out of what I read. Now, obviously, there are limitations to this. ChatGPT doesn't have direct access to the books I'm reading, so it may not know exactly what I'm talking about, and you have to be careful of hallucinations. But I really think a lot of those issues will be resolved or improved over the next couple months, and it'll be a powerful and important tool for anyone to use as you're trying to learn things. Okay, but why is the sky blue?
The sky appears blue because of a phenomenon called Rayleigh scattering. When sunlight enters the atmosphere, it's scattered in all directions by molecules and tiny particles in the air.
What about aliens? Do aliens exist?